You ever get that feeling about a big institution like, maybe things aren't quite as smooth as they look on the surface?
Yeah, that nagging sense that something's a bit off.
Exactly. That's kind of where we're headed today. We've been hearing whispers, and frankly, you brought our attention to some really interesting stuff happening over at NH Nonghai Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And it touches on something we know listeners care about, institutional accountability, Are things working the way they should?
Right. It's a critical question.
So we're going to dive into these allegations about some, let's call them potentially irregular loans given to a company called Siyoung Holdings.
Okay.
And at the same time, there's this appointment, an official from the Financial Services Commission, the FSC, being made an outside director, which is interesting timing.
Very interesting timing, yeah. It definitely raises questions.
So our goal here is just to unpack what's going on. What do these events maybe tell us about the bank's inner workings?
Let's try and piece it together. You've really hit the two main points everyone's watching.
Good. Okay, so let's start with these loans. The alleged unjust loans to Siyoung Holdings. What's the basic story?
Well, the core accusation is that NH Nonghai might have bent the rules, perhaps, provided loans without the usual proper procedures.
Okay. And we're not talking small change, are we?
No, definitely not. The figure being investigated is somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 billion Korean won.
Wow.
And the really crucial bit seems to be whether these loans had the necessary guarantees from the Korea Credit Guarantee Fund. That's the standard safeguard.
Right, that insurance policy, essentially.
Exactly. And it seems like that might have been missing, or at least that's what the investigation is looking into.
Now, you mentioned earlier, this isn't totally out of the blue. This has history.
It does, yeah. Actually, back in 2023, during a National Assembly audit, there was a lawmaker, Kim Sung-nam, from the Democratic Party. He specifically flagged a concern about a much larger loan, 10 billion won, apparently.
10 billion.
Yeah. And the allegation then was that this particular loan might have been pushed through before the bank even got the guarantee certificates sorted out.
Ooh, okay. That sounds not good, if true.
If true, absolutely. It would suggest a potentially serious breakdown in their lending controls.
So those early warnings, they eventually led to this current, more formal investigation.
It looks that way. Prosecutors really ramped things up in February this year.
Yeah.
A full-scale investigation was launched.
And what did that involve? Just looking at papers?
Oh, no, much more than that. They actually raided the bank's headquarters.
Really?
Yes, and also raided Siyoung Holdings itself. And another related company, Siyoung Industrial Development Group.
So hitting all the key players.
Seems like it. Plus, they've been questioning people involved. And just very recently, April 10th, the CEO of Siyoung Holdings was brought in for questioning.
Okay, so the authorities are definitely taking this very seriously.
The level of activity certainly suggests that, yes, it's moved beyond initial concerns to active investigation.
What are the stakes here for NH Nonghai if these allegations turn out to be true?
Well, they're pretty high. I mean, first, there's the direct financial risk. If those loans aren't properly secured, they might struggle to get that money back.
Sure.
But perhaps even bigger is the reputational damage.
Yeah.
Trust is everything for a bank, right?
Absolutely fundamental.
And then you've got potential regulatory penalties, fines, stricter oversight, that kind of thing. It could get quite messy for them.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to that other piece you mentioned, the appointment, Kim Hong-ki.
Yes, the new outside director, also appointed to the audit committee, which is important.
And his background is what makes this interesting, right? He's not just some random academic.
Exactly. He's currently a member of the Financial Services Commission's own internal control task force.
Wow. Okay. So literally involved with the regulator that oversees the banks.
Right. And on top of that, he's a law professor at Yonsei University. So credentials-wise, he looks, very strong, very relevant expertise.
So why the controversy then? Seems like a good hire on the face of it.
It's all about the timing and the context. The appointment was finalized April 1st for a 2-year term.
Right when this loan investigation is heating up.
Precisely. And when you connect that to the loan scandal and also some wider issues with the bank's internal controls that we should probably talk about.
Okay.
Well, some observers are suggesting this appointment might be, shall we say, a strategic defensive move.
Ah, I see. So the idea is by bringing in someone connected to the FSC, maybe the bank is trying to, signal they're taking things seriously or deflect criticism.
That's the interpretation from critics, essentially. Yeah. Is this appointment a genuine attempt to fix underlying problems? Or is it more about managing perceptions while they're under fire?
Kind of like, look, we hired someone from the regulator. We're serious about controls now.
Exactly. It could be seen as a way to try and perhaps soften the blow from regulators and calm public concern.
How would the bank likely frame it, though?
Oh, the bank would almost certainly position it as a positive, proactive step.
Right.
We're strengthening our governance. We're bringing in top expertise to improve internal controls.
Right. Two sides to that coin.
Definitely. And it leads into that broader discussion you mentioned, the overall state of internal control at the bank.
Yeah, because it sounds like these loan issues might not be just a one-off problem at the top, but maybe part of a bigger pattern.
That's certainly a concern being raised.
Yeah.
There was a report mentioned that NH Nonghype has actually suffered quite significant losses from financial accidents recently.
Financial accidents, like what, fraud, errors?
It can be a range of things: internal fraud, embezzlement, major operational mistakes, loan mismanagement.
Yeah.
The report cited at least 16 such incidents in just the past 2 years.
16 in 2 years.
Yes. And the total losses from those incidents were apparently over 45 billion Korean won.
45 billion. That's a lot of accidents and a lot of money.
It is. And it does suggest potential systemic weaknesses. Internal controls are meant to be the bank's safety net. The rules, the checks, the oversight to prevent exactly these kinds of things.
So if you have 16 major incidents,
It implies the safety net might have some pretty big holes in it.
and isn't there a committee specifically supposed to handle this stuff?
Yes, the Internal Control Committee. But adding to the concern, the report also mentioned that this committee itself has allegedly failed to properly address these incidents.
So the very group meant to oversee and fix things isn't doing its job effectively. That sounds problematic.
It really undermines the whole system, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If the oversight body itself isn't working properly, it raises serious questions about accountability all the way through the bank.
Is there any data that sort of backs up this idea of weak controls?
There is, actually.
Yeah.
And it's quite stark. Data from the Financial Supervisory Service, the FSS, looked at financial accidents over the past 5 years. NH Nonghype apparently lost about 52.68 billion won in that period. But here's the kicker. Their recovery rate was only 1.7%.
1.7%. So they only got back like 1.71 for every 100 won they lost.
Essentially, yes. Just 911 million won recovered out of nearly 53 billion lost. And that figure, 1.7%, was reportedly the lowest recovery rate among all domestic commercial banks in Korea.
Wow. Lowest in the country. That's a really telling statistic, isn't it?
It really is. It suggests a fundamental problem. Either they're really bad at preventing these losses in the first place, or they're incredibly ineffective at getting the money back afterwards. Or maybe both.
Yeah. When you hear a number like that, it does make you look past the official statements and wonder what's really going on inside.
Absolutely. It paints a concerning picture.
Which brings us to this concept someone mentioned, performative governance. What exactly does that mean here?
Right. It's a term used when an organization takes actions that look like good governance, like they're being ethical and transparent,
Yeah.
but maybe it's mostly for show.
Like putting on a performance.
Exactly. It's about the appearance, the optics, rather than deep, genuine change. A financial industry insider apparently used this idea in relation to NH Nonghype.
How so?
Well, the suggestion was that the bank might be making a big deal about things like ESG, environmental, social, governance, and talking up transparent management.
Mm-hmm. Standard corporate speak these days.
Right. But that this public image might clash with what the insider called outdated internal systems. So saying all the right things externally, while internally maybe the core processes and controls haven't really kept up or aren't truly effective.
So it's like polishing the outside while the inside needs work?
That's a good way to put it. The critique is essentially asking if the bank is genuinely overhauling its systems or just applying a fresh coat of paint.
And this new appointment, Kim Hong-ki, fits into this debate then?
Perfectly. The central question becomes, is bringing him in a real commitment to fixing those potentially outdated systems and tackling these serious control issues? Or is it, as that insider hinted, more of a cosmetic, symbolic response? Something that looks good, picks a box, but doesn't necessarily address the root causes of why they've had so many financial accidents and such a poor recovery rate.
It really puts that appointment in a different light, doesn't it? You see why people are questioning the motive.
It highlights the difficulty. for outsiders especially, in judging whether reforms are real or just for show.
Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together. It feels like there's a real tension here.
Definitely.
You've got these quite serious allegations about potentially illegal loans hanging over the bank. That's one major pressure point.
Huge pressure, yeah. Legal and financial risks there.
And then you have this appointment of a high-profile, regulator-connected figure to an oversight role, which could be good.
Could be. A sign of strengthening controls?
But the timing and the context make you wonder it's more about managing the crisis than fundamental change. Is it genuine governance improvement, or is it that performative governance idea?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or perhaps the $53 billion one question, given the losses.
Right. And that statistic, that 1.7% recovery rate on financial accidents, it just looms large over everything, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
It acts as this stark piece of data that suggests the problems might be deeper and more persistent than just one bad loan situation or one questionable appointment. It hints at ongoing operational or control failings.
So thinking about all this, it kind of forces you to ask a bigger question, right? Beyond just NH Nong hype.
What are you thinking?
Well, what does it actually mean when a big financial institution says it has robust governance? What should we, as people trying to understand this, actually look for to tell the difference between genuine, solid internal controls and, well, just window dressing?
That's a fantastic question. How do you verify the substance behind the statements? It's a real challenge, ensuring accountability and transparency inside these complex organizations, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are those real indicators versus the cosmetic ones?
Something to definitely keep thinking about.